Good evening, Unity on the Bay. Happy Monday. I hope you've had a wonderful day so far, and I hope this is a beneficial and pleasant addition to it. Just give a few minutes for people to join us here on Shelf Discovery. That's right, I said Shelf Discovery, which is also, I hope and pray, a self-discovery experience for you as we share these next few moments together. I'm really glad you're here. I so appreciate that we have been enlightened by the discovery of this Zoom experience and online experience that's kept us all knitted closely together through the COVID crisis, which seems to be sort of rearing its face again. I was going to say its ugly face, but I don't want to judge it. It is what it is. And at any rate, I'm really glad you're here. Let me know that you're here if you're watching right now. Tonight, we're going to be exploring, again, one of my favorite books. Hi, Wendy. Love and blessings to you and Seth. Lord, I feel like I haven't seen you well, it has been a long time. And yet, I very much appreciate that you've knitted yourself into so many Unity on the Bay experiences virtually. It's good to have you here. Suarez, thank you for joining us tonight. Glad you're here. So the idea of Shelf Discovery is that we get together every Monday night live on YouTube and Facebook Live to experience an interactive program. And I want to encourage you to participate in this with me as we explore tonight's subject. Let me know your thoughts and let me know your suggestions and ideas on perhaps how you are more completely bringing the experience of self-care and rest. Remember that word, rest? It's a beautiful word. Hi, Robert. Nice to have you. Happy Monday to you, too. Let me know your thoughts and let's share together. We can interact by your expressing your thoughts and ideas and reactions in the comments below. Tonight, we're going to be exploring, again, one of my favorite books from my bookshelf behind me. I don't keep a lot of books. I read a lot of books, but I don't keep a lot of them. I only keep the ones I consider to be the resources that I will want to revisit or that I'll want to use in my life in some way, or sometimes in talks and so forth. Hey, Carmen, love you. I'm glad you're here. So let's get into this. Tonight's book is Sabbath, and it's subtitled Finding Rest, Renewal, and Delight in Our Busy Lives. I thought this might be relevant on the chance that maybe you live a busy life, as so many of us do right now, how important it is to keep our values and our priorities clear and clean. And that includes rest, renewal, and finding delight in everyday life. This book was published a number of years ago by Wayne Muller, the author. And I want to share with you just a little bit about Wayne Muller. He's an ordained minister and therapist and founder of Bread for the Journey, a graduate of Harvard Divinity School. He is a senior scholar at the Fetzer Institute and a fellow of the Institute of Noetic Sciences. Hi, Christina. I'm glad you're here. Welcome. He is the author of Legacy of the Heart, a New York Times bestseller, and How Then Shall We Live? And he lives with his family in Northern California. Let's take a look here at what Wayne has to say. Well, first of all, I'm going to open with comments that he shares from Thomas Merton in the pages of his book, Sabbath, of Wayne's book, Sabbath. Thomas Merton said, and listen to these words because I think they're loaded, there is a pervasive form of contemporary violence, that is activism and overwork. The rush and pressure of modern life are a form, perhaps the most common form, of innate violence. Strong words. Hi, Aaron. Glad you're here. To allow oneself to be carried away by a multitude of conflicting concerns, to surrender to too many demands, to command oneself to too many projects, to want to help everyone in everything is to succumb to violence. The frenzy of our activism neutralizes our work for peace. It destroys our own inner capacity for peace. It destroys the fruitfulness of our work. because it kills the root of inner wisdom, which makes work fruitful. So let's just take a look at Thomas Merton's words before we get into any further dialogue from Wayne Muller. A form of violence. What he's saying is that when we live our lives with our minds constantly in high speed, when we are trying to accommodate everybody and everything's agendas that are coming at us, that the infinitely long to-do list, the weight that comes from knowing there isn't enough time to accomplish the things that we absolutely positively believe we have to accomplish, it's a form of violence. And it's a form of violence, if you choose to accept that word and that perspective, that really inhibits our ability to enter into what I have often said is the single most important activity we can enter into. And that is the art of doing nothing. In our society, I believe, at least, that we are taught that it's a sign of inefficiency, ineffectiveness, and certainly non-productivity to do nothing. And yet, as we study some of the Eastern persuasions, and we begin to dedicate ourselves more to this life of spiritual awakening, I believe we find that some of the most valuable moments that we spend are when we are not engaged in external activity or action, but rather we are allowing ourselves to pay tribute to ourselves by resting, by becoming aware of our breathing and breathing more fully and more deeply, by, as Muji, the spiritual teacher Muji refers to it as, emptying our minds. Glad you agree, Christina. I welcome all opinions here. So, and I'll say this about opinions. I'm not saying that productivity isn't significant and important and that it's essential. What I am saying, perhaps, is that productivity, true productivity, increases when we allow ourselves the experiences of stillness and silence and solitude. Carmen says, wow, I had never looked at it from that perspective, as perpetrating violence against myself. That radical perspective definitely motivates me more to reevaluate my choices and activities. Yeah, I never really thought of it. To tell you the truth, Carmen, because I haven't read this book, I haven't even opened it in a long time. But when I read that quote from Thomas Merton, it was like, wow, innate violence toward ourselves. It's a strong word, but I think it's used to capture our attention to realize that we have the opportunity to do something about this. We have the opportunity, and you know me, I love to explore individual values, to recognize where in our value system does our own well-being and our own peace of mind really lie. And when you've got a sense of well-being and peace of mind, you have everything. Because out of a mind and out of a consciousness that is immersed in well-being and self-care and self-compassion and gentleness, great things are accomplished. It's in that state of mind that we open ourselves, I believe, to a more complete awareness of our unconditioned nature, our unconditional nature, which is such a resource to us because it can pour into our lives all of these ideas, all of these awarenesses, all of these directions that when we're so busy moving from activity to activity, we just don't allow any time for. Let me know your opinions on this. And also, I'm interested tonight in knowing what practices do you employ to make sure that you keep Sabbath toward the top of your list of priorities in daily living. Wendy, thank you, Wendy. I know it makes a difference because everyone who has seen me since I have retired and started to take it easy says they want to know what I'm doing, that it looks great on me. And I would agree with that, Wendy. I've actually seen in you a physical shift, like a lightness, and a radiance. It's been a while since I've seen you, but I remember observing those things, thinking, wow, this lady is onto something. Carmen, love you too. So yeah, let me know if you have any thoughts on what you're doing to bring forth the Sabbath experience more completely into your life. For me, this was not easy because I've said before, and it remains true today, one of the most challenging, difficult things for me to do is nothing. I love my activity. I like to feel productive. I like it when my energy is in peak form and I can get it done. And it's very difficult. I remember years ago, I was privileged to have as a primary coworker in my life, Reverend Jim Rosemurgy. And I remember the first time he said to me, would you like to go on a silent retreat to my cabin in the Ozarks? Some of you have heard this story, but I thought, frankly, the last thing I want to do is go spend a silent weekend in a cabin in the mountains of the Ozarks. So I had resistance, and yet something was telling me this was a good thing. And I had seen the benefits of silence and solitude and retreat in Jim's life. So I went for it. And it wasn't particularly the easiest experience for me, especially initially, because all kinds of things came into my mind. You should be doing this, like, guilt-induced states of mind and so forth. And it took me a while, but I remember when I finally took my first breath without really thinking about what I was going to do next. It was exhilarating and it was uplifting. So I think the idea of Sabbath is super important and have come to appreciate it even more. Now, some of you know I take silent retreats and they're in silence and they're in solitude. And it used to be I could only do that for a few days. Now I can do it for as long as a couple of weeks. And it's not always that I'm not doing anything, but I will only do the things that I feel spontaneously inspired to get engaged in. And they're usually reflective or contemplative types of activities. So it's been really beneficial to me. Now I can hardly imagine living my life without that kind of self-care and really self-preservation and self-nonviolence. Let's see what Wayne Muller has to say. Sabbath honors the necessary wisdom of dormancy. If certain plant species, for example, do not lie dormant for winter, they will not bear fruit in the spring. If this continues for more than a season, the plant begins to die. If dormancy continues to be prevented, the entire species will die. A period of rest in which nutrition and fertility most readily coalesce is not simply a human psychological convenience. It is a spiritual and biological necessity. A necessity. A lack of dormancy produces confusion and erosion in the life force. We too have a period in which we lie fallow and restore our souls. In Sabbath time, we remember to celebrate what is beautiful and sacred. We light candles, sing songs, tell stories, eat, nap, and make love. He goes on in this great book, not only to explain the human necessity of Sabbath, of rest, of renewal, of, as Jesus said, coming apart for a while, but he gives a number of specific exercises that we can engage in that will help us in this direction. And I want to share some of those with you this evening. Of course, one of them we all know because we're good Unity students is prayer and meditation. And we talk about it a lot, but it's really not just about talking about it. It's about, are we practicing it? Have we incorporated it into our lives? The important things in our life we do give attention to. And we may say that we believe that Sabbath, rest, renewal, recharging is important, but have we actually taken the time to build it into the schedule of our lives? He says some of the ways that we can do that are by creating a morning routine. And I realize morning routines are like everywhere these days. You got to have a morning routine, or at least so we hear. I don't think it's so much about creating a morning routine, although I personally do adhere to one, I try to be flexible with it. I think it's just about being aware of the state of mind or consciousness in which we awaken in the morning. And whether or not that is, the alarm going off and immediate pressures of the tasks at hand for the day, and cluttering our minds, perhaps even with things that we left unresolved the night before, to really start to become consciously aware of how we're waking up in the morning. If you know me well, this is a big platform of mine, that it's important. So just to become aware and to build time into the morning hours, the early morning hours, for us to just contemplate and for us to take the time for meditation, for prayer, and to enjoy the reality that we have just awakened to another quite miraculous 24-hour period that lies before us, to just soak that in for a moment. That's preceded by just the awareness of getting good rest for ourselves, being aware of the state of mind we're carrying into bed with us every night. And are we taking any baggage that we don't really need to bring along? Hey, Pam, I'm glad you like it too. I'll tell you, this book has been a life changer for me. It really has. Wayne Muller's Sabbath, a wonderful book. I highly recommend it. He also talks, and these are things that, I may have not opened the book for a while, but partially that's because I've incorporated a lot of these things into my life. Let's see, Christina says, I made meditation part of my routine, what I take very seriously. And that made me a completely different person. When everyone asks me what I am doing, I say it's all about personal growth and dedication, and dedicating my life to be 100% connected to my spiritual being. Wow. Those are powerful, I think, and moving words. You see, here's Christina telling us that it's not only a good idea, or as Thomas Merton would say, it's not only a necessity, but it really allows us to tap more directly into the higher dimensions of our own consciousness, which always bless our lives. Thank you, Christina. I appreciate that, your words and your experience and your dedication, because it does take dedication. We're living in this world where external influences are constantly pulling on us. And it's difficult to take, if you will, command of your life experience and say, I'm not going to allow my life to be dictated by external demands. When I realize there are internal, I wouldn't say they're necessarily demands, but they're certainly passionate requests to move more deeply into the awareness of who we are. And that is so beneficial, because so much of our life is like built around the values and the conditions of other individuals and external authorities. I thought you wrote a book too, Chris. Pam, I have written this book so many times, and I'm still in the process of it because it's evolving for me. But it remains one of my projects. It's not out yet. I did write a workbook a few years ago, and that was published, something like The Art of Waking Up, I think it was. But it has gone out of print, and it was really just an effort for me to put some study material together for a workshop that I was doing. But the book is underway, so stay tuned. He also talks about, and if you know me well, you'll know that this is important to me too, but I've never heard the term used this way. His term is thinning, Thinning, thinning. Now we're hearing this as we're hearing many of the ideas that he shared many years ago when he wrote this book, more and more today through two words that I'm familiar with: minimalism and essentialism. It's the idea of going through your life in terms of physical possessions. And this can be very therapeutic, especially if you're alone, in solitude, in a prayerful state of consciousness. You're going through your physical possessions, but you're also going through your mental possessions, and you're thinning, or you're clearing out space. You're asking yourself what's important for you to possess physically and what's important for you to hold in your mind. They sort of work in tandem. I find that the more things I'm surrounded with in my life, physical possessions, the more it tends to kind of clutter up my own mind. So I've gotten eccentric about this. I ask myself almost every day at some point during my day, in some area of my physical dwelling or my automobile, am I using these things? Do they bring meaning and value into my life? So this clearing can be a wonderful exercise or practice of self-care that has long-term benefits, I believe. He talks about ritual bathing. Ritual bathing, and we're sort of living in a shower society where it's like I take a shower for functional purposes because I need to go out into the world and I don't want to stink and I want to feel as good as I can and I want to look presentable. But there's a whole nother dimension to the cleansing of our bodies and the appreciation of our bodies and allowing ourselves, to light a candle or two and put some salts into a nice warm, if not hot bath, and just relax ourselves and consciously give thanks for our physical body, every little square inch of it, and bless it as we're going through this experience. Can bring you very much into the present moment with a greater sense of appreciation for your physical body. And it's also incredibly soothing and brings forth, I believe, a really restful evening and a lot of peace of mind. What things do you do, folks, that help you to stay tuned to the importance of self-care in your life? Let us know in the comments if you would. Another thing that he mentions, and this is really awesome too, is a Sabbath meal. Now, I'm working on this one. I've had Sabbath meals. They're just meals where you are consciously perhaps preparing, but at least enjoying or taking in a really delicious meal, a great meal. Aaron says, I love work and I am at that stage in my life now where I can sit and watch it all day. But on a more serious side, I do believe practicing me time is very important and I do that. Thank you, Aaron. Love work and I'm at that stage in my life now where I can sit and watch it all day. Yeah. Well, another part of that could be too, Aaron, knowing you to some degree, I really believe that work changes its tone with us as we become more aware and more awake, in that work suddenly doesn't become work as much anymore. I was just reading an article the other day that said, make every day of your life a vacation day. And it wasn't talking about leaving town or absolutely not being productive at all, or just going off and having a good time. It was talking about the mindset that you go into when you take a vacation and the anticipation that you have and the different translation of the things that are before you that need to be accomplished. Nancy says, swimming is very meditative for me. Qigong is literally meditation in motion. That's true. And motion is another way in which we can exercise self-care and experience the Sabbath. Moving our physical bodies and doing it consciously. I'm an avid walker, and I love that you can go on YouTube now and get some of these walking meditations and turn a form of exercise, be it swimming, qigong, whatever it might be, body movement, into meditation. It's very powerful, I believe. Back to the Sabbath meal. I'm not saying that I'm preparing all of my meals, although I do prepare most of my meals anymore. I'm not saying I prepare all my meals or that I consume all of my meals in a state of total conscious awareness, but I'm working on it. And what I noticed is, to be really honest with you, a lot of times when I would sit down to eat a meal, especially if I was by myself, I'd bring my cell phone with me and I'd listen to something. And I realized, and it was always something beneficial, usually a spiritual subject matter. But what I noticed was that I was like becoming addicted to some degree to listening to spiritual material on my cell phone, because it's so easy to do and it's always there. And I like getting, but there comes a point where it's still just input, different people's ideas about spirituality and spiritual practices and so forth. So I'm trying to back off a little bit, and I'm trying to not have anything going on around me when I'm consuming the meal, but just be really conscious of how it tastes and be blessing the food before I eat it and while I'm eating it. So that's what Wayne Muller calls a Sabbath meal. Carmen, I'm so glad you're here. Replying to Nancy, yes, I love both of those. Yes, I know you do. And I know you do, Carmen. and they're really very valuable. So if you want this book, let me share one thing with you. We have a few more minutes before I wrap this up, because I thought this was interesting from Wayne Muller's book, Sabbath. Christina says, I listen to meditation music when I'm having a meal. That is also very beneficial, and I've done that as well, because it kind of takes you out of your mind, doesn't it? Just allows you to enjoy it. But so often, this is the thing, is we're living in a world where it's rush, do more. I'm not raving about the generation I grew up in, but we did usually have most of our meals as a family around a table. And I know that wasn't the case raising my own kids nearly as much. And I don't think it's true in today's world either. But here, I want to share this with you before we wrap tonight up. Wayne Muller says, when we think of Jesus, we usually think of him as teaching, healing, or being accosted by the hordes of sick or possessed individuals who sought his touch. But Jesus would just as often send people away or disappear without warning, dismissing those in need with neither excuse nor explanation, and retreat to a place of rest. Jesus did not wait until everyone had been properly cared for, until all who sought him were healed. He did not ask permission to go, nor did he leave anyone behind on call, or even let his disciples know where he was going. Jesus obeyed a deeper rhythm. When the moment for rest had come, the time for healing was over, he would simply stop, retire to a quiet place, and pray. So the main message I wanted to convey to you tonight is, not only is it okay for us to be exceptionally kind, nurturing, and accommodating to ourselves, but if you believe Thomas Merton, it's essential and it's an act of violence to ignore it. Our life here on this planet is relatively fleeting. I'm seeing that more every day as the years roll along. It's such a priceless and beautiful experience to be here. And we wouldn't be here if it weren't for this current form that we occupy. So to be able to appreciate ourselves, to acknowledge our need for extreme self-appreciation and care, and know that that's also the means by which we become instruments of greater benefit to all those around us. Why? Because we're well rested. We've taken the time to get centered. We're nourishing and nurturing ourselves. So important right now in a world that's constantly trying to beckon to us to pay attention to everything but ourselves. Some might say that's a selfish activity. I say it is the most beautiful and selfless activity we can ever enter into. So go forth. Thank you, Carmen. Love you dearly. Love you all. And I'm so grateful for your presence here tonight. Have a wonderful night. Go to sleep tonight. And if you don't take a warm bath or have a silent, sacred Sabbath meal, at least take a moment to thank, love, and appreciate yourself for the journey that you have experienced in this life, and commit to yourself that you're going to do things large or small to acknowledge the gift that you are. Nancy says, Thich Nhat Hanh's book, How to Walk, is a beautiful book about how walking can keep you in the present moment. Walking. Go have a good walk, my friends. I love you all. Thanks for being here tonight. Have a blessed week, and I'll see you next Monday. Bye for now.